The movie Chaappa Kurishu, which colloquially means heads or tails in Cochin lingo, explores the idea of power and transformation by bringing two main characters from vastly different social backgrounds together. Heads and tails represents two sides of the same coin. It also highlights hierarchy. The head leads and is on top, while the tail follows and is below. The head has power, while the tail does not. The movie can be seen as a psychological exploration of its two main characters who come from very different worlds and are forced to interact with each other reluctantly, shaping each other's character. The social background and characters of Arjun and Ansari are established right from the beginning of the movie. Arjun wakes up in a swanky apartment while Ansari wakes up in a shabby little room in a slum. Both characters come from very different social classes. Arjun from an upper class background with many privileges and Ansari from a very poor underprivileged background. The nuances of these backgrounds are clearly portrayed through the details like how their clothes are kept, where they eat, their modes of travel, and where they work. All these aspects reinforce their position in society and highlight where they stand on the social scale. Apart from their social background, the movie primarily highlights their character traits. Their respective privileges contribute significantly to their personalities. Arjun's privilege makes him an arrogant and a proud person. He becomes agitated when things do not go his way. He treats women as though they are objects and regards his subordinates with contempt. He is purely self-seeking and shows little concern for those around him. On the scale of things, he is emotionally abusive. This is particularly evident in the way he treats the two women in his life. He uses Sonia without any intention of commitment and he is engaged to Anne primarily because of her wealth. He uses them for his own happiness and pleasure. His privileged background has allowed him to continue in this way of life without facing any real consequences. Ansari, on the other hand, is the one who constantly gets abused. As he enters the restaurant to eat breakfast, the owner mocks him and he does not retaliate. We understand that this is the usual everyday routine. The manager at the supermarket where he works constantly harasses him despite Ansari being a diligent worker. This is Ansari's life. He is at the bottom of every hierarchy and has accepted this as the way of the world. He avoids any confrontation while others around exert their dominance over him. The philosopher Michel Foucault helped rethink traditional understanding of power as a thing in itself and instead saw it as a relation. He knows that power is not just present at macro levels but present at every level of society. It is embedded and emerges in an intricate web of relationships between individuals. This then permeates and influences individual behaviors. In the movie, there are varying power relationships between the different characters of the story. Power is abused by Arjun, who exploits the dependence of various people in his life. In contrast, Ansari is the one being abused by those who hold power over him, rendering him powerless in his relationships. Both characters are at opposite ends of the power spectrum. One is the head, the other the tail. This situation is reflective of larger societal power dynamics between those who have economic and social power and those who do not. However, in Chaappa Kurishu, one incident in the movie completely overturns this power hierarchy. The inciting incident occurs when Arjun drops his phone at a restaurant which contains compromising videos of him and Sonia, and Ansari picks it up. Although he has no intention of stealing it and even lacks the knowledge to use an iPhone, certain events unfold and instead of returning it, he keeps it to himself. This immediately changes the power dynamics. By Ansari having something in his possession that Arjun desperately needs, both of them are forced to engage in a discourse that is completely different from the world around them. In this discourse, it is Ansari who has control and Arjun who does not. In this new context, Ansari becomes the head and Arjun becomes the tail. This shift in power is going to have a major effect on both their lives. There is very little actual communication between Arjun and Ansari, but they are inevitably engaged in a dialogue with each other. this new state of existence will force them into situations they have never encountered before, pushing them to change their core personalities. The first signs of transformation come when Ansari picks up the phone and Arjun addresses him as Sir. No one has ever spoken to him with respect, and we immediately see a change in his demeanor. He begins to enjoy his newfound power. He follows this up by toying with Arjun and demanding difficult tasks from him, exacting revenge on those who have abused their power over him. Ansari's move from powerlessness to power is so sudden that he uses as much of it as possible to punish the people who have kept him oppressed. He begins to assert his dominance, yet very much in the shadows. Arjun, on the other hand, is left completely without any control and is forced to do everything Ansari demands because he desperately needs his phone back. Initially, he is very frustrated and angry, bursting out at every opportunity. However, he understands he is now in a situation which he himself imposed on others in his life. This experience compels him to reflect on his actions. Stripped of his power, he begins to understand what it means to be on the receiving end of abuse. The realization is evident in a scene where he acknowledges that he has betrayed Sonia's trust. Arjun is gradually beginning to transform. He is able to see the pain that he has caused others in his life. Ansari's journey, though, isn't as upwards. He is initially in a downward spiral, drunk on his newfound power. The phone, like the ring of power, thrusts him into a world he does not understand but finds exhilarating. It is only when the one person in his life who truly cares about him points out the detrimental signs that he is willing to snap out of it and return the phone. But the journey helps him break down the narrative that he is a victim of the circumstances around him and starts to exercise control. Instead of shying away from Nafisa as he usually does, he begins to express himself to her. Ansari now has begun his transformation. It is inevitable, though, that the final transformation of the characters emerges from a physical fight between Arjun and Ansari. Both have lived many years in their previous states of existence, so the transformation that must emerge is not an easy transition, but a violent change. After a chase, Arjun and Ansari find themselves in a confined space, venting their anger and frustration by physically hitting each other. Arjun, filled with pent-up anger towards Ansari, who unknowingly damaged his and Sonia's reputation, initially beats Ansari relentlessly. Ansari offers very little resistance, still trying to evade and escape, a remnant of his old self. However, at one point, Ansari retaliates by striking Arjun with as much force, symbolizing his emerging transformation as someone who can assert himself, not just behind a phone in incognito mode, but face to face with his adversary. In the final scene of the movie, Arjun is sitting with Sonia, entirely committed to her, truly seeing her for who she is. And Ansari stands up for himself against his bully. Both have radically transformed. Arjun has moved from selfishness to empathy, and Ansari has moved from cowardice to courage. A change that could only have happened because they were displaced from their respective positions of power and forced to interact with each other.